My family always called me the sentimental one, too emotionally weak for the world of business. So when they cast me out, they expected me to fail. They never, ever expected me to return 5 years later as the new owner of their company. My name is Avery, and I'm 32 years old. From the 80th floor of my Manhattan penthouse, the world looks like a circuit board, silent, orderly, and under my control. 5 years ago, I had none of this. 5 years ago, my brother, Spencer, publicly humiliated me and had me thrown out of my own father's company in Austin with nothing but a single cardboard box and the burning shame of betrayal. He told me, in front of everyone, that I was too sentimental for the cold world of business. So, last week, I sent a gilded invitation to my entire family. It was for a family reconciliation summit at my private ski resort in Aspen, Colorado. They think I'm finally ready to forgive, to let them back in, maybe even share a piece of the fortune they've only read about in Forbes. They think I'm the same sentimental girl. They don't know that for 5 years, every deal I closed, every asset I acquired, was a chess piece moving into position. They think I'm inviting them to the table for a piece of my pie. They don't realize I'm coming to take the whole bakery. In most family revenge stories, you hear about explosive fights and dramatic confrontations. Mine was different. It was a silent, 5-year siege. This kind of cold fire. It's a familiar feeling for some of us, isn't it? If you've ever had to build your own kingdom from the ashes of being cast out, I want you to do one small thing. Just type the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. Let's see how far this silent army of survivors really stretches. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Austin, Texas. 5 years ago. The air in the Miller construction boardroom was always cold, but that day, it was glacial. I was presenting my passion project, a sustainable, mixed-income housing development designed to revitalize a forgotten part of the city. It was innovative, community-focused, and I'd poured 2 years of my life into it. I thought I was presenting the future of our family's company. Instead, I was walking into my own execution. Spencer stood up, not to support me, but to dismantle me. He projected my own emails onto the massive screen, cherry-picking phrases, twisting my passionate arguments into emotional instability and my cautious risk assessments into childish fear. He spoke about legacy, about the need for a strong, unsentimental hand to guide the company his hand. And my parents, William and Helen, just sat there, motionless. Their silence was his permission slip. It was their endorsement. The board, seeing their inaction, sided with the heir apparent. I wasn't just voted off the project. I was voted out of my own life. Security escorted me to my desk to pack a single, pathetic cardboard box. The walk of shame down that hallway, past the faces of people I'd hired, mentored, and trusted, felt a mile long. That's the thing about family betrayal. The wound isn't just deep, it's a foundational crack. It redefines everything you thought was solid ground. Have you ever looked at the people who were supposed to protect you and realized you were utterly alone? I need to know, I'm not the only one. In the comments, type fixer if you were always the one trying to hold things together, or type outcast if you were the one they pushed aside. Let's see the unspoken roles we've been forced to play. With that one box and about $3,000 to my name, I drove west for 2 days straight, until the Texas dust was a distant memory. I landed in Seattle, Washington, for no other reason than it felt like the end of the world, a place where the constant drizzle might wash away the humiliation. My new home was a 400-square-foot studio apartment in a neighborhood where sirens were the local birdsong. The view from my window wasn't a sprawling Austin skyline, it was a brick wall. The contrast was a daily, brutal reminder of everything I had lost. My days became a blur of survival. I started at 5 a.m., pulling espresso shots for tech bros who would complain about the Wi-Fi speed, completely unaware that the woman serving them had designed multi-million-dollar network infrastructures. My nights were spent under the solitary glow of a laptop screen, freelancing for coding gigs that barely paid my rent. I lived on instant ramen and stale coffee, the taste of failure in every bite. But something happens when you hit rock bottom. The fear of falling disappears. The shame my family had branded me with. It started to burn away in the fires of my own quiet fury. It cauterized the wound, leaving behind not a scar, but a core of tempered steel. I wasn't just surviving, I was observing. I was studying the tech industry from the inside out, dissecting every startup success and failure I could read about, finding the gaps in the market. I was a ghost haunting the edges of the very world they thought I was too weak for. They thought they had banished me to a damp, gray exile. They had no idea they'd just given me the perfect place to sharpen my knives in the dark. The dark was my sanctuary, but I wasn't meant to stay there. After 2 years of scraping by and stockpiling knowledge, I took every dollar I had saved, a pitiful $10,000, and made my move. I officially registered my company, Aura Homes. It wasn't born in a flashy Silicon Valley incubator. It was born in that same leaky studio apartment, with a secondhand server humming next to my bed, my business plan scribbled across a giant whiteboard that took up half the room. My mission was ruthlessly simple: to use AI and predictive analytics to manage high-end properties with an efficiency the old guard, like my father's company, couldn't possibly comprehend. My first clients were the underdogs, just like me, small-time investors the big firms wouldn't bother with. I gave them my full attention and delivered results that were unheard of. Their word-of-mouth recommendations became a wildfire. Within 18 months, Aura Homes wasn't a secret anymore. We secured our first round of serious venture capital. Within 3 years, we were a recognized name in PropTech, managing over $1 billion in assets along the West Coast. The business journals in Texas started to notice. They ran profiles. The Seattle upstart disrupting a Texas legacy. They'd place my sleek, minimalist logo next to the stuffy, dated crest of Miller Construction. The ghost they had exiled was no longer a whisper. I was a headline, that first taste of success after so much pain. It's a validation that no one can ever take from you. Have you ever taken a moment that was meant to break you and turned it into your biggest source of strength? If you know that feeling, that transformation from victim to victor, just write the word power in the comments. It's a silent nod to everyone else here who has done the same. The articles in the business journals were public validation, but they were external. The real turning point, the moment my strategy shifted from competition to conquest, arrived silently. It came in the form of a single, encrypted email that landed in my inbox at 2 a.m. The sender was my cousin, Miles. Growing up, Miles was the quiet, brilliant one in the family. He had a mind for engineering and logistics that could run circles around my brother, but his fatal flaw, in my family's eyes, was that he wasn't my father's son. To my father, William, he was a useful asset. To my brother, Spencer, he was a quiet threat to be kept in his place, forever, a senior manager, never an executive. His first message was brief, almost coded. Avery, what you're building is remarkable. What Spencer is doing here is not. He's running the company into the ground with vanity projects and catastrophic debt. I just wanted to say, I see you. That was all. But it was everything. That one email opened a secret back channel between us. We moved our conversations to an encrypted app, a digital ghost whispering secrets from the heart of my old life. He became my eyes and ears. He'd send me redacted internal reports, details of over-budget projects Spencer was hiding from the board, whispers of low morale among the senior staff. He wasn't just a sympathizer, he became my co-conspirator. The information he provided confirmed what the market was only beginning to suspect. Miller Construction wasn't a fortress anymore. It was a hollowed-out shell, rotting from the inside. And my plan began to change. It was no longer enough to build a bigger kingdom. It was time to take back the one I'd been exiled from. A frontal assault was never my style. That was how Spencer operated, all brute force and ego. Our plan had to be the opposite, a ghost operation, a corporate takeover so quiet and precise, they wouldn't know what hit them until the boardroom chairs were already being pulled out from under them. Our war room was a secure video link connecting my pristine New York office with Miles's cluttered home study in an Austin suburb. For 6 months, we were generals planning a coup. He was my man on the inside, providing a steady stream of raw intelligence. Quarterly cash flow reports Spencer had fudged, lists of disgruntled shareholders, details on contracts that were hemorrhaging money. Back in New York, my team of legal and financial sharks the best money could buy took that intelligence and weaponized it. The plan unfolded in 3 phases. Phase 1 was the quiet accumulation. Through a network of anonymous shell corporations, my firm began buying up Miller Construction's publicly traded stock. We moved slowly, carefully, never buying enough at once to trigger an SEC alert. Every time a frustrated investor dumped their shares, we were there to swallow them whole. Phase 2 was the alliance. I personally and discreetly reached out to the other major shareholders, pension fund managers, and old family friends I knew were tired of Spencer's reckless leadership. I didn't ask for their allegiance. I simply presented them with the data. Miller Construction's declining value versus Aura Homes' explosive growth. I let them draw their own conclusions. The final phase, the checkmate, was Aspen. We needed to isolate them, get them on neutral ground, away from their usual echo chamber of lawyers. The Family Reconciliation Summit was the perfect Trojan horse. An olive branch concealing an army at the gates. The invitations were printed on heavy, cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering, the kind my mother, Helen, always adored. The language was a masterpiece of corporate sentimentality, filled with carefully chosen words like healing, legacy, and moving forward as a family. It was an olive branch, seemingly offered from a position of wealth and success, designed to appeal to their two greatest weaknesses, greed and pride. I sent them via overnight courier and waited for the trap to spring. I didn't have to wait long. Miles fed me the details of their reaction. He said my father, William, read the invitation with a satisfied nod, interpreting it as my inevitable surrender. In his mind, I had played with my tech toys long enough and was finally coming back to the family fold, realizing I needed his guidance. My mother was already planning her Aspen wardrobe, talking about the importance of family while dreaming of the luxury. But Spencer's reaction was the most telling. He apparently laughed out loud. He told them, "See? She's finally ready to talk. She probably needs us to help manage her money. Maybe she needs a bailout." He truly believed I was inviting him there to offer him a piece of my empire. The arrogance was breathtaking. They spent an entire dinner debating how much of my company they should demand in exchange for their forgiveness. The idea that I could be the predator, not the prey, never once crossed their minds. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Watching people completely underestimate you, so blinded by their own narrative that they can't see the reality standing right in front of them. If you have ever had to sit quietly while someone completely misjudged your strength, your intelligence, or your resolve, I want you to just type the word waiting in the comments. Because you and I both know that the moment of revelation is always worth the wait. The conference room at the Aspen Resort overlooked a pristine, snow-covered mountain range. The setting was serene, beautiful, and completely soundproof, the perfect, sterile environment for a quiet execution. They walked in smelling of money and entitlement, my father William looking smug, my mother Helen already mentally redecorating my life, and my brother Spencer wearing the triumphant smirk of a conquering hero. They sat at the polished mahogany table, expecting me to start with a tearful apology or a desperate plea. I did neither. I simply smiled, picked up a small remote, and the 100-inch screen behind me flickered to life. The first slide wasn't a nostalgic family photo. It was a stark graph showing the nosedive of Miller Construction's stock price over the last 5 years. Spencer's smirk faltered. For the next 20 minutes, I was no longer their daughter or their sister. I was a CEO delivering a brutal performance review. I spoke not with emotion, but with the cold, hard language of data. Slide after slide, I walked them through every vanity project Spencer had launched, displaying the millions of dollars hemorrhaged. I showed them the company's soaring debt-to-equity ratio, the fleeing investors, the market share reports where Aura Homes was systematically devouring their core business. Using the information Miles had given me, I quoted Spencer's own arrogant predictions from past board meetings, juxtaposing them with the disastrous results. The room grew colder with every click of the remote. When I finished, the silence was absolute. I let it hang in the air, a heavy blanket of their failure. Then, I clicked one last time. The final slide showed the Aura Homes logo with an arrow pointing to the Miller Construction logo. Beneath it, a single word, acquisition. I turned to them, my voice calm and even. "This isn't a reconciliation, it's a rescue. You have until Sunday night to accept my very generous offer to purchase this company. If you decline, on Monday morning at 9:01 a.m., I will initiate a hostile takeover, and I will win. For a full 30 seconds after I spoke, the only sound was the faint hum of the projector. It was as if I'd frozen time. Then, the facade didn't just crack, it exploded. Spencer shot to his feet, his chair scraping violently against the floor. His face was a mask of crimson fury. "You can't do this," he yelled, his voice echoing in the silent room. "This is our legacy. Dad, are you seriously going to let her talk to us this way?" He wasn't even looking at me anymore. He was looking at our father, his eyes pleading for the backup he had received his entire life. But my father, William, didn't look at his son. His gaze was fixed on me, and for the first time, I didn't see a father looking at his daughter. I saw a cornered businessman assessing a predator. And my mother, Helen, whose entire identity was built on social standing and the prestige of the Miller name, looked physically ill not from my betrayal, but from the financial ruin she had just seen laid bare on the screen. The fear of losing their status was infinitely more powerful than their loyalty to their son. My father's voice was low and heavy when he finally spoke. "Sit down, Spencer." Then he turned to me, his voice stripped of all paternal warmth. "Show me the terms." That was it. The moment of betrayal. Spencer's face crumbled as he realized he had been abandoned. In that instant, he was no longer the golden child. He was just a liability. It's incredible how quickly allegiances can shift when survival is on the line. Have you ever had a moment where the masks finally dropped and you saw someone's true character? It can be heartbreaking, but also liberating. If you know that feeling, that painful clarity, just write the word truth in the comments. It's a quiet acknowledgement for everyone who has had to face a difficult reality. They signed the papers on Sunday evening. The transfer of Miller Construction, my grandfather's legacy, to Aura Homes was finalized in that same silent, sterile conference room. The next morning, I didn't fly back to New York. I flew to Austin. For the first time in 5 years, I walked through the towering glass doors of the headquarters, not as an outcast, but as the sole owner. The news had already ripped through the company, and the atmosphere in the lobby was thick with fear and speculation. They were expecting a conqueror, a vengeful daughter ready to purge everyone loyal to the old regime. I called a company-wide town hall for that afternoon. Standing at the podium, looking out at the hundreds of faces I once knew so well, I told them the truth. I told them that the era of mismanagement was over, that the company's foundation was strong, but its recent leadership had been poisoned by ego. I spoke of a new chapter, one based on merit, transparency, and innovation. Then, I delivered the twist they never saw coming. "I will not be your new CEO," I announced to the silent auditorium. "My focus remains with Aura Homes. This company needs a leader who understands its soul, who has stayed loyal to its true potential even during its darkest days." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "That is why I am honored to introduce your new Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Miles Foster." A wave of stunned silence was followed by a ripple, and then a tidal wave of applause. The employees weren't just clapping, they were cheering. They were on their feet. This wasn't a hostile takeover anymore. This was a liberation. As Miles walked to the stage, his face a picture of shock and disbelief. I knew I had done more than just take my revenge. I had restored justice. The dust from the explosion settled, but the aftershocks continued. Back in my New York sanctuary, my phone, which had been silent for 5 years, began to buzz incessantly. The messages were a predictable, pathetic symphony of damage control. My mother, Helen, sent long, rambling texts about unfortunate misunderstandings, now suddenly eager to have a real family celebration for my success. A success she now clearly wanted to be associated with. My father, William, left a stiff, awkward voicemail, praising my impressive business acumen as if he were a proud mentor who had secretly guided me all along. It was a nauseating attempt to rewrite history, to reposition themselves on the winning side now that the battle was over. They weren't apologizing for the wound. They were just trying to get a seat at my new, more powerful table. The only honest message, in its own bitter way, came from Spencer. A single text late one night. "You won. I hope you're happy." It wasn't an apology, but it was the raw admission of a defeated man, and for that, it was the only one I respected. I didn't respond with anger or gloating. I had my assistant schedule a single 15-minute conference call with my parents. My tone was not emotional, it was clinical. I informed them that any future relationship we might have would be on entirely new terms, dictated by me. There would be no more assumptions, no more entitlement. Connection would have to be earned through consistent, demonstrated respect, not demanded through a shared last name. I was drawing a new map for our family, and on this map, my home was the capital. For the first time in their lives, they were outsiders who would have to earn the right to visit. The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been permanently redrawn. So, here we are, back where we started, in my penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The Aspen summit is a memory. Miller Construction, under Miles's steady leadership, is more profitable than it has been in a decade. And my family is slowly, cautiously learning a new language, the language of boundaries. My revenge was never about burning their world to the ground. It was about taking the bricks they threw at me and building an empire so powerful it could acquire their crumbling castle. It was about proving that a legacy isn't something you inherit by birthright. It's something you forge in fire on your own terms. People often talk about the importance of forgiveness, as if it's the only noble path. But sometimes, true healing doesn't come from absolution. It comes from action. I believe in something I call strategic forgiveness. You don't forgive the act, but you strip it of its power over you. You do this by channeling all that pain, all that righteous anger, not into destruction, but into fuel for your own ascent. You use it to become so successful, so unshakable, that what they did to you becomes nothing more than a footnote in your origin story. You don't just get even. You get better. You rewrite the ending. This journey, from outcast to owner, was incredibly lonely. But sharing it reminds me that none of us who have fought these battles are ever truly alone. If this story resonated with the fight in your own heart, this space is for you. Subscribe to this channel and join a community of people who understand that the most powerful family revenge stories are the ones where you become your own hero. Let's continue to share our strength, because your story deserves to be heard.